Yildiztekin.
Good afternoon. My name is Atilla Yildiztekin. We've been working in the field of logistics and supply chain. Aras, Arkas, logistics are the ones I have personally founded, and then I've been also providing consultancy services also in many other companies. I'm actually an amateur. I'm not professional like you. I spend an evening in Yeditepe University only, where I teach the students about logistics, warehouse management, etc. So I'm working on various projects, and I want the area to develop further. So I am again the consultant of the Italian TESISQUARE company here. I am the representative in Turkey for this company. I'd like to thank them very much. They're the gold sponsors of this event, and they're here with us today. Robert, and Massimo are here, and they have the headsets, so you can know who they are from the headsets that they're wearing. Now, this conference has a lovely name: Collaboration Through Networking and Knowledge Sharing. And yes, today I'll tell you about supply chain and transparency in supply chain and collaboration. This is why I'm here. Well, this is not really very academic, but I wanted to make it somehow more relevant. And I'll be talking about supply chain visibility and how we can manage it. So within my allocated time, I'll try to do that. So I'll tell you about TESISQUARE. We're an Italian company established in Italy in 1995 with more than 250 employees. And the turnover has been rising, and they keep spreading from Brazil to the Americas and to all around in the world. It's an Italian company doing the services. And then they have the ISO 9001 and 27001 certificates. They've been active almost for a year in Turkey. It's not yet been a year. And we meet with the logistics directors of the companies. We make presentations about how they can possibly manage their supply chain. Me, as a semi-academician, I do not go to those places to sell a software. I just want to raise awareness. This is the software. In some place, even if you don't use it yourself, have a look at it. It's worth a try, etc. And it proves very useful. We'll finalize the first implementation with Anadolu Motor engines this month, and then we have 5 or 6 companies we're looking to hear from in the pipeline. So it's quite an active way of operating our business. So very briefly, I'll tell you about the future of the supply chain, and speaking about today only doesn't prove useful. We're all working for the future and the challenges of the future. Then collaboration for us is a key term. How can we ensure collaboration for our suppliers, logistics, and the sellers as well? And also the solutions. These are modular solutions. Other than warehouse management, all other operations with your ERP, whichever ERP you're using, we make a connection and you can run it immediately. So, there's the old definition, which you find in textbooks. Supply chain is defined as the chain of processes from supplier to the customer's customer. So it used to be a triple process. And then we woke up a bit. We said at least the supplier's supplier and the seller of the seller should be added. But then the new definition suggests chain of processes from raw materials to the return of consumed goods. We call this the business process, actually. And you have to manage the whole process, because a product that you sell, if it's not consumed, then you can't sell it again. And it's just like any item sitting in your warehouse. So you should make them consume as much and then give the new item to the consumer. And again, all the way to the raw material provider. You have to also control and manage the incoming raw materials. So, Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals has about 10,000 members. It used to be called Logistics Professionals Association, but then they changed their name. It's an international council. In different places in the US, they get together with about 500 different speakers speaking in on 3 days, on not like 3-4 halls like here, but in 10-12 different halls. I try to participate in that, and I was a representative in Turkey for them. We had roundtable discussions in Turkey. So here's how they define the supply chain. And by the way, the council always adds on new concepts to the definition. They say supply chain management is the systemic and strategic coordination of a company's supply chain and non-business functions to improve the long-term performance. So even if you produce the same product, it might function differently. And we want to improve the long-term performance. So healthy growth from birth to death. We want to have a healthy way of life, just like human beings. That's what the companies also aspire to have. So, amongst the business functions and with the sellers and the suppliers. So it's a coordination. Let's say you have an ERP and you are trying to manage your supply chain accordingly. ERPs do not actually manage the supply chain. ERPs only bring about a more effective usage of the corporate resources. And in order to make these ERPs more effective, we have add-ons. Of course, supply chain management software would be the best, but not many companies use that so far. And the ones that do not want to spend so much at the beginning. So on ERPs, we have some add-on programs to render more lucrative use on the side of the ERPs. So this is the old definition. But the future definition will be about, the whole supply chain management, again, including all business functions, improvement of the long-term performance, so the goal stays the same, and all the steps from raw material to the consumption. But what's added is transparent, strategic, and systematic coordination and collaboration. This is the added phrase. So it has to be transparent and you have to collaborate. So for this matter, the things I'm going to tell you about today will reveal you how transparency can be ensured and collaboration can be attained. And the supply chain definition has also changed. The incoming products, sales, etc., or procurement, this is no longer the functions we're talking about. Here we're starting with CRM, Customer Relations Management. So even before you start producing your product, you have to plan on your future customer. And in the academic line, we call it the pull and the push systems. I mean, right now, the other systems are obsolete. I mean, you first produce and then push it in the market and then create a demand, do the marketing, etc. This is no longer being used. You have to first of all create a demand in the market and then make that market pull that product from us. This is the new era breaking in. So we are starting production on demand. Many sectors are doing that, and this is spreading. You first create the demand, people wait at your door, you take your orders, you plan them, and then you spread it onto your sales points. And then customer service management. How are you going to provide service to your customers? And then managing the demand from the market, because this might be imbalanced and it might be seasonal. So we have to somehow make it systematic. You make advertisement, for example, but it should be in line with your own production plans. And then the order fulfillment, manufacturing, which is our fundamental operation, and then procurement and the management of procurement again. Of course, one thing can't be forgotten. You cannot sell one product forever. You always have to renew it. You have to revise your existing product. This is why product development is also a rudimentary function in the supply chain. And then logistics. You have to outsource it as much as you can. And then something new is about the returns. Returns are also the pain in the neck for the supply chains, and we have to take relevant measures to minimize these. Well, there are some strategies. Common strategy is one of them, for example. Everyone part of the chain has to work with each other. So postponement, where you first get the order and then produce. This should be done. CPFR, common planning, forecast and replenishment is like that. Then we're talking about lean and agile supply chains. So you have to modify yourself according to everything, and whatever is redundant should be removed. Just in time is the basic pillar, because zero stock is the ultimate aim of every supply chain. Simulation. Before we set up the plant, we make simulations. Then advanced planning. We plan our future, our next year. What are we going to sell? To whom? Etc. This is also very important and significant demand area. And then while doing all this, of course, transparency and collaboration is a must. Now, from the raw material to the consumption, many different actors take place, like suppliers, forwarders, logistics, and the salespeople who do the sales. So they have to work in harmony as though they are different parts of an arrow in order to signify movement. So we need to establish a chain as such, and this is called collaboration in our eyes. Now, what are the advantages of collaboration? Collaboration gives you a cost advantage, first of all. I mean, you minimize your extra costs, which increases your profit or your market share. Depends on your preference. So this is a function or a pillar of long-term sustainability. Then efficiency increases. Risks go down because everything becomes visible and you can see your risks on a screen. You can say, these are my risks, this and that might happen. Then shorter cycle time. From raw material to consumption, you have a shorter process, which means more production and more sales. Then the inventory is reduced, which is very important. Budgetary performance is boosted. Then long-term partnership is what we form with the companies because we collaborate with them. It's a strategic cooperation that we have. Customer satisfaction goes up, and also made-as-order production brings about also strategic cooperation. This is a must anyway. Okay, what are the risks if we do not collaborate? Well, there will be supply shortages. If there is no communication, if there is no transparency and collaboration, then you'll have shortage issues. Then you might have stock outs. You may not have an item whenever you need it. It may not be available, or certain orders might be missed. Lead times might be an issue. Handling might be problematic. And also, we lose control in transit. We give it to the warehouse. Whenever they take it, then it will be delivered. And only after then will we learn about it, which is a huge risk if you're trying to manage your supply chain. Or financially speaking, late payments are an issue, or FX issues and FX rate related problems happen, and the overhead costs increase. So this is a summary of the risks. So the summary then is all about collaboration, that all the companies that are part of the supply chain should collaborate with each other, and it should be established in such a way that we as the directors, or you as the directors, if you're at the head of logistics, if you're directing logistics, then you have to harness information and then decide accordingly. If the information you receive are not confirmed, are erroneous, or if it has defects, then you can't render the right decision. So the best way to deal with that is that you have the right data on your screen at all times, and the system automatically deciding for you before you having to do it actually. We want to move on to that. So in the past, in managing the supply chain, we used to organize the budgets, and in order to hit the budgets, all the functions work together: sales, procurement, logistics, etc. And then at the end of the year, we got together and looked at how much we hit the targets and then got an incentive or not. Now, this system should definitely come to an end. It has to. And then we said, let's go into the details and look at the functional excellence, how we can improve our processes. So that was the new era which has started. And then today, as part of the supply chain, we're trying to integrate the supply. So the good or the semi-finished product and their relationship should be well handled so that there is no stock cost formed on your side. And then demand-driven supply chain, so the pull system taking action directly. There should be a demand, and we will either supply the materials or produce them accordingly. And later on into the future, we call the supply chain components the value creation network, because all the costs, supply chain and logistic costs, have to be minimized, and we have to create value by managing the supply chain much better. And digital ecosystems are looming on the horizon, and this is being mentioned in academic papers. I keep hearing this more and more. We should be ready to manage this already today. There are some key factors which we can talk about. It's important that there's a real-time sharing of information from the creation of the order all the way to the delivery. However, taking one information to another place does not mean sharing necessarily. In many SAP or ERP applications, I see this misunderstanding. If you do not confirm the reception of that information, then that doesn't make any sense. It's just like talking on a walkie-talkie. If you don't say Roger at the end, then nobody knows what you mean. Or if you've received that information. So you have to let them know as a confirmation so that both parties have the same process on their books. And then sharing of information should be really smooth, because delayed information definitely will cause a delay. So it should be really real time. And then the sellers or the suppliers should be assessed by looking at KPIs, and therefore you should improve your process. So all of this is what we call collaboration. Now, what are the solutions then? We have two solutions here. Everyone has heard of the word cloud. We've heard it so much that now it's, we want to see the sun finally and get rid of all the clouds. Well, cloud is gathering all information in one place and everyone connecting to that cloud and transferring the information. So cloud is being formed in a sectoral basis, and TESI in Italy does this. In the electronic materials, medical sector, and fast consumption goods, they are creating a cloud where it's like a central database, and all the medical warehouses or markets, etc., get together and they transfer the information. This is what they're doing. However, until then, we're still working in our own private clouds. We call the public cloud many-to-many tenants, whereas the other one, we call the private cloud because we are the owners of our cloud, and we share this with the relevant bodies and collaborate. So while doing all this, we keep talking about communication, that information reaches from one place to another place, and we use very different systems. We might use emails, for example, but the email is not like your email saying, "Oh, hello, best regards, yours sincerely," sort of email. There's a link at the bottom, and then when the person hits the link on that email, then they will see theirs. Well, they'll see your screen on theirs, and then once they say enter, the new information will be transferred onto your screen. So this is one thing that I like very much. So I like this sort of remote transfer of information. Rather than creating a mess in my own computer, I just send that link, and the persons who receive that link work on this, and then when they say enter, I receive that information in my own format, in my own system. And the best thing is, whichever country you send it to, that person sees that information in their own language, but then I have to again consolidate it in Turkish once again. So the other one is via a portal. So it's downloading information over a portal. And then Excel information. I don't like Excel very much. In my first SAP application, I got rid of Excel in all the computers in Borusan because we're using SAP and they were still sending me Excel sheets. I said, well, we have SAP ready to do reports, but you're still sending me Excel. So what are you doing? They work on Excel and then send it to me. I said, for a month, you'll get rid of Excel on all the machines and you have to use SAP. So this is my history. But of course, Excel is not a thing of the past. It still exists. And then ERP, information transfer, and now over web EDI, communication is also possible. So there are many different methods.
When the methods are so different, of course, then we have different tools. In the past, we had PCs, desktop PCs, which were quite large. Then the notebooks came up. We started using notebooks, bringing them home, having remote connection, etc. But things are still evolving. Now we have something at hand, the tablets, which we always have at hand, whether in the car or at home, and even in the smartphones, the applications on the smartphones are the next step. And whenever you wish, through the apps on the smartphone, you can go into the system and do whatever is necessary through your smartphones. The same is true for mobile connections, through dashboards, where dashboards are provided by the APP that enable viewing of document status in real time. This is another screen where you have your status, how much you have achieved, what is still missing, what is waiting to be dealt with is just a click away, and you have all the details, what is missing, why is the delay, and whenever you go into the system, you have the sub-details to it. By clicking, you can see the reasons for the delay and can intervene, or the system intervenes and makes some adjustments without you doing anything extra. We have two solution groups. One is the inbound, and the other one is the outbound, or the upstream or downstream. Inbound and outbound. Some do make two different processes out of it, but I prefer to take them together because you cannot consider them separate by themselves. because for all the products, you need the inbound and outbound processes at the same time. For supply chains, we usually have the inbound processes and the outbound processes separated, however. We have the forwarders, for example, or companies who are doing the forward handling when to deliver what types of materials, products, etc. We have, of course, the producers, the manufacturers who are doing the end products, and we are the tower, the control tower in between, who manage the inbound and outbound processes in this system. It's like the control tower at the airport. When is which airplane going to land? Does it have a delay? The ones who are on time are green, the other ones are on red, etc. And all the operations on the supply chain can be viewed in a transparent way according to the competencies, of course, they have, and all the solutions in the system can also be provided. And this we call end-to-end visibility. From the raw material of the producers, of the manufacturers, to the customers, and the delivery to the customers is end-to-end visibility. Of course, we have different modules. Each module is a separate operation in the inbound process. We have, for example, the sourcing, the procurement, and the execution. The sourcing is, again, has three sub-models. We have the vendor management, the relations with the vendor, and the vendor management is the overall, is one subcategory, and the automatic up-to-date of all the information, some change in the information concerning a supplier by email, for example, or whether some contracts or documents are have to be renewed, or assessing the performance of the vendors as also part of the vendor management. Secondly, we have the bid management within this inbound processes. And or if you have a contract vendor and you have to have the price comparison with different vendors, you again have to take the different offers. You take the demand. You send the demand to the other one, and the vendor has on his screen all the information pertaining to the order, and he gives his proposal, and then you can either say yes or no. You can change, for example, price, or you can change the quantity. You can have a new lead time, etc. And again, you have all these on the screen. These items are approved. It's green. These items have been changed, etc. And when you approve the change, again, you have the confirmation, and the green light on the other side is seen, and this is the constant exchange of information. And without really having too much documents, you can manage the control and the vendor, everything with the vendors. And we always say don't cooperate with any vendor without having a contract, even if it's a very simple contract. According to the type of the supply, you should have a contract. But unfortunately, we see that in many companies, there are contracts which are put up on the file, and nobody really takes care, and nobody looks again at the contracts. And even in some companies, they can't find the contract. They ask the supplier, and nobody really takes very much care of them. They think, however, this is very essentially, it should entail all the possible or potential problems and solutions as well. Then we have the second line, which is the procurement, including catalog and price list management. The price lists have to be regularly updated, and you have to confirm the price list to the other side, or the price list has to be updated in such a manner that the vendor can see it. And again, this is shared on the system. And the same is valid for spending management and checking whether this is within the limits of the budget or not. The purchase request processing is the last sub-item in the item of procurement. Again, we see that the order management is very important, very critical. It has to include all the information coming from the ERP, including the demand already, and transferring this to the other party. Pre-demand and request being sent on a specific date has to be followed up, and this has to be confirmed, etc. On this date, these types of materials are going to be shipped to this place, for example. And another part is on the execution parts. You have, as I said, the order management, the inbound management, and last but not least, the invoice management. The system has every detail which is necessary for the invoice. The other party sees the invoice in its details. It's being confirmed by the other party, and then I'm sending this to the financial department, and this is a digital invoice, or even if it's a PDF, it can be scanned and turned into a digital document where you don't have to control all the items like quantity, price, etc. But of course, you have to have the document management. You have to have the workflow, notification and alerting tools in place, and you have always to be able to see the KPIs. This is how the process functions. This is your inbound process. Where there is an order and delivery, the order is being sent to the supplier, where the order confirmation comes back to you. Then you have the delivery plan. The supplier confirms the delivery plan. You have the SCM and open order lines publication, which is also created with the information of the ERPs. And the traveling goods and advanced shipping notice, including the invoice, is being sent, is being prepared, and then you can trip creation and track and trace the shipping, and together with the forwarders, the invoice confirmation again is then put into the system. The same is true for the outbound process. We call this the transportation management system. With the transportation management, we have 4 modules. You have the planning. You have to plan the route. I will say to my carrier that this is the route I'm suggesting to you, or if I'm doing the shipment myself, then I give all the information to the unit who is going to carry out the shipment, which is necessary for them for the planning. I do the planning, I do the routing through a navigation system like Google Navigation or Yandex, and I always am in a position to trace where the shipping is at a very specific moment, especially if there's a traffic congestion. We can suggest new routes in order to make sure that the product is delivered on time. Of course, we can always do an updating and optimization of the routes. If you only say Ahmed is the driver of 20 trucks who knows how to go his way, then of course this is very valuable. However, through the optimization processes, we see that it's not only geographic routing, however, that we can use this information through overlapping routing in the planning process without giving a company name. We had an example. They had 23 vehicles for the route optimization. They could reduce the number of vehicles to 12 through this route optimization. And of course, it was a lot of cost saving for this company. The same is true for the carrier portal engagement. The carrier gives all the information to us, and for loading, unloading, booking. This is also very important, especially in front of the warehouse, where to dock, where to load, where to unload, at what time of day, etc. is very important in order to be sure to have a smooth loading and unloading, or if the truck has to wait in front of the warehouse for the next loading or unloading. The tracking of the vehicles is important as part of the execution, of course, and issue on deliveries and service level control are also part of the execution, which is being carried out with the relevant software. Of course, we have all the costings, which we are calculating the price list and rate management. Even if you're doing it in-house, you have to have the price lists and do the rate management in the same software. And in this way, you can have very detailed reports for transport cost control. I just saw a report yesterday of a company, and it was calculating that they had 12 drivers, and they were calculating the cost per driver of the company for each shipment, which is quite a detailed calculation. Again, you have the pre-invoices which you're sending to the carriers, and when the carriers confirms this pre-invoice, then you go along. Of course, while doing all these, you are certainly on a point where you have competitive advantage. You have an agile and flexible design framework to fit with customers' specific business requirements. And within the system, you have all the demands coming from your customers, which are embedded in the system already. And if they come up with very specific requests, then you're also able to do this. And if you have such a software, then you are really in a position where you can help your client or your supplier in the best way possible. And this is the way you can provide a very flexible framework for you, which fits the customers with specific business requirements. And in each country, of course, you have a technical team with team members who are speaking the language of the country. So again, you can make sure to have a smooth run of the operation. Anyone who would like to ask questions, I'm very happy to answer them as far as I can. Hello. Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I was afraid that nobody is going to ask a question. It's either I was perfect in explaining everything or nobody did get any gist. We are using SAP. We are using SAP. How do you do the integration with SAP and EPR? Well, in Europe, all the big companies are using SAP, and this software takes all the necessary information from the SAP. The order information, for example, is extracted out from the SAP and being transferred to the respective supplier. And when the supplier conforms this, TSA brings this into the system as an order. If it's a shipping notice, for example, or any other information pertaining to the shipment, it's also transferred to the software, and all the updates are also transferred to the SAP automatically when the carrier is changed, the email of the carrier changes, etc. And so this is always in a constant update with the SAP. And SAP, of course, is the big name here, and the SAP implementations is very easy for them. Here in Turkey, we have more problems. We have a list. This is SAP, and this is what in the TESI software. What is your company? Ana Gold Mining Company. We are a mining company. What kind of mining? Gold. Welcome. Well, I really didn't get the real difference between TESISQUARE and ERP, and we're using also ASAP. Except for route optimization, we are having everything what we need, and except for the route optimization. And for allocation and replenishment is where we need to have some more information to have the right product at the right store at the right quantity. This is important for stock management, and I worked with SAP 3-4 years long, and from bid management, supplier management, workflows, etc. It's more or less the same in SAP and ASAP. And the only difference is with the route optimization, as I said. I mean, for allocation and replenishment, what is the difference between ERP except for allocation and replenishment? What you just mentioned are things what the ERP has to do anyway, order management, etc. This is part of the ERP, and whatever you use, Oracle, SAP, or whatever, you have to do this in your software. Our characteristic is that we provide the optimal communication between you and your supplier, and make sure that the feedback from the supplier is integrated into your system as well. And it is using EDI, and you can see this on your screen. Whether this has been confirmed or not, whether the other party has opened your mail or not. The system also creates warning mails. I mean, if the supplier does not open this order within 3 days, then just giving him a warning, etc. This is the collaboration. This is for the inbound, for the outbound. For all your shipments, for example, when you inform the carrier through the SAP, give me some details of the carrier you're using. You sometimes have to pay a very high price for this, and you can do this with this software on a much more cost-effective way. And the biggest advantage is that you have this on your screen. You can see this, or you can see all the operation except for the ERP on your supply chain. And this is the major advantage. This has been confirmed, this has been rejected, this is the order of quantity. The supplier has viewed these and these not, and you can see all the sub-details to it. And this is a management screen, actually. It's like the control tower on the airport, but it doesn't work without the ERP, of course. Again, thank you very much for your participation.